Right, it's recording now.
Okay. Let's see, am I the presenter?
You can see the flower.
Let's see. Oh, right, wonderful. Let's make it another monitor. Enter 2. Okay.
Okay, you can see it.
All right. All right, so the main purpose of this, I guess, presentation is I came up with maybe a method of how we want to standardize our writing of load readers. And this is mainly due to my struggle with Synapse's load reader almost a year back. Can everybody hear me? I'm not sure if I'm...
Yep, can hear you fine.
Okay. I think you guys are muted. Okay. Anyway, so because of the issues we have with their incoming load data, I think I developed a pretty thorough methodology for catching suspicious load, and of course, I'm sure it can be improved. But the key components of this method are recognizing the what type of load it is. Is it an actual load or a forecast load? Recognizing if it's a load in the allowed horizon and offset. That means, if we allow only load within the last week or so, any load that comes in outside that range is not allowed in. But going back to the larger overview, so here's what my ini file would look like for a very traditional type reader. Now, this reader is for weather data from a client, but the idea works the same. Let's see, is this the weather data? Hold on. I think I got the wrong one on, but it doesn't matter. So whether it's load or whether it does not matter. The idea is still the same. When we have our ini block, we are going to collect non-essential configuration data, such as type code, source file. If the type of data is an actual or a forecast for load or weather, what is the horizon and offset allowed in this particular data gathering? And horizon and offset are just as what you expect. If you have an offset of 1 and a horizon of 8, then you only allow a week worth of, a day back and a 7 days forward worth of data coming in. Now, with the temporal alignment parameters, I want to know the zone in the file that the data is coming in. I want to know what data table to map it to. I want to know its time zone. If it's, if it's -500, obviously we don't need to do any shifting. If it's different, we will. And same with local time, is it true or false? Now, for each of those data tables, there could be a TZ2 and a TZ3 specified. If it's not specified, it defaults to TZ1. That's why I have the TZ2s and the local time 2s and 3s banged out. Okay, so this is the configuration setup. I'm going to move on. I'm going to leave some time for questions after that. But here is what I did. I added 2 methods to the import base class, all the way at the bottom. So one collects the non-essential information, like the other config data that I showed here. Okay, stores it in a dictionary of type string. And the other method corrects all the temporal alignment information. So hopefully this is going to save us a lot of headache going forward. And this is, again, the mapping that I have here. You're going to have a dictionary of type string and tuple. The string is going to be, I have the explanations here. I don't know where they went. Here it is. The string is the zone, so the zone from here. And the values of the tuple are data table name, time zone, and local time. I believe in the new version of C#, there is a way to do name tuples, but I haven't messed with that yet. So it would be easier to identify what is the second string or what is the third string. Now, this method is the exact same thing as your vanilla get tag parameter method that we use across the board. But hopefully, if we maybe use the same one, then we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So once we gather all that information, let's see. This is an example of a reader that implements it. So if we have all that data, so we gather our temporal alignment data, our non-essential configuration data, we then parse the file using the try-parse file method, which Tony mentioned. It's similar to, let's see, it's similar to his already pre-existing method, and I did make a note to look at it because, let's see, I did make a note of, I did make a note to look at it because it does all the same things, but it has a lot more error checking. But let's go to it for a second. Let's see. So try parse file doesn't do anything fancy. It just uses a, I think it uses a Microsoft VBS, Microsoft Visual Basic File I/O, to gather all the data in that file and just save it as a data table. And I'll make a note to look at it later. Let's see. Okay. Now, once that is all, and again, this doesn't do any error checking, so that's why I'm going to have to go back and probably implement some of that. But once all that data from the source file is in a data table, we can easily just query it and stick it across different data tables that we have specified in our ini file. So if we have a file with 3 zones, zone 1, 2, and 3, for example, I have a sample here. So this is what the sample looks like. I hope you guys can all see it. I don't know if my screen is big enough.
Yeah, I can see it, okay.
So you have the timestamp, region, whatever you have, your zone name, just pretend that the zone names do line up, and whatever information we have. Now, once we get that data, we query that giant data table and divide it up across multiple data tables that need to go in our database.
So this is this method is the real trick, isn't it? This one is where it matches up the incoming header names with, and puts it into methods, well, just puts it into variable names that we know. Correct. So this is the method that does the guts of the work, and
exactly.
it uses
yeah. So this is the portion that's going to be unique for each reader. It's this fill tables method. Let's say, you know, depending on what data table you're creating, you need to specify what what headers, or sorry, what fields you're going to have in it.
So for each custom reader, you would have to create your own vanilla table.
Yes, that is correct.
Which would be similar to this, and then also you have to make the other method you just had up before. This would have to be adjusted as well. That makes sense.
If we decide to not make any changes, we'll just have to, and we can this is obviously is a special case because this is not your general load act or load forecast table. This is a weather table from a given client, which has their own, units of measurement and whatnot.
I'm also assuming if there are extra columns in the input file, we just simply ignore them. We don't have to specify them here.
That's exactly right. So if you can see here, I'm using a link to populate each of those empty data tables in our in one of our, let's see, in our dictionary. So our dictionary has let's see, which one is it? Eventually, it's going to be a data set of tables. So those are the ones that are going to get populated. And they're going to get populated with this information from the file.
So I really like this method because it's a great way of showing the power of link and how it makes things really obvious and simplify things. I think it's quite a powerful method.
Yes, I mean, the first time I did it, it took me forever because I did not know that I need to add this little bit right here as enumerable, and I think I spent a day on it. But when I figured it out, it was pretty rewarding. But so once we parse all those all that information from the file into separate data tables, we can then shift them. Let's see, let me collapse some of the code here. Come on. Which one is it? Oh, sorry. Too many IDs I'm using. Okay. Once we process those tables, we can then shift them if needed. And I have the methods right here. It's, shift time zone, local time to standard, and those methods utilize the data structures we created right here. One where we gather the temporal alignment data, and one where we gather other non-essential configuration data. So given that information that we just got from the ini file, we can then go ahead and either shift or not shift, or change local to standard of all those tables in the memory, and then we can write them to the database with proper logging. Now,
another step to consider after that, or before that actually, is converting units, and I could see that would be fairly straightforward to do as well. But that's another step that sometimes you need to do, is convert units.
I wonder, I think I maybe had to do it in here. I can't remember if I had to convert units here. I think at this stage you might. But yes,
Okay,
I
so
didn't have to
you would do it here. So
I
where
think.
you'd add another method
Yeah,
somewhere
I
in
could
there.
have a method that calls, instead of just saying temperature, I could say temperature, dot convert to Fahrenheit or something like that. And then that would get populated properly. Or we can use any of the existing methods that we already have in Tesla Lib.
Okay, that's good
Now,
to know.
so now, and then these smaller methods, I think write to db log, shift tz, I have them in different flavors, also in import base. So, and as you can see, that's the same headers, but they take different arguments. You can either give a local to standard a data table, or you can give it a data set, or the newest method I have is you give it a dictionary of string and data table, of type string and data table, and then you give it the site type region ID, and it figures out whether it needs to shift it or not, right?
And so in these methods, do they use some existing methods that are in the data table
Yes, that is
utils?
correct. Yes,
Yes.
thank you for reminding me. Yes, they do use existing methods. So I believe the local to standard uses Tony's convert to standard. And the reason I did it this way, it's basically a wrapper method to improve logging, because all of the data table utils methods are static methods. So I couldn't figure out a way how to use it with instantiated logs. So basically, all these guys don't do any difficult logic. They're just calling other methods that do that, but they have the logging capability. So thank you, Dorn, for reminding me to talk about it. Okay, so back to our reader. The only difference with this reader that I could see from the other ones is, I think this one, because the information came in the wrong order, it came in all various orders. I think I had to implement a sorting thing in here somewhere. Let me find it. Yes, I had to sort them by date and time, unfortunately, because it was coming in all possible configurations. And then finally, once those tables are sorted, I can then use the write to db log and write those to the database. Now, this is the only one, and the first one I wrote, this is the only reader I wrote with the quote-unquote new methodology. I haven't tested it extensively. I put it in production because it's only writing client data. And we do have processes to monitor if something fails. So I haven't seen anything failing yet, but that doesn't mean it won't. And I definitely need to go back and see if I can import some of Tony's error checking methodology from his, I think he's called read in CSV, to my triparse file, which I mentioned earlier. And it's sitting right here. Let's see. I think I made a note of that. Yeah, I made a note of that. To do. Okay.
Another important thing to do, if you haven't already, is to add tests into the create even a new a test DLL, where you could, for example, even if you manually hard code the contents of one of those files, and then call your reader, so that and then double check the output somehow. If we can do that, so it goes through all that manipulation, because if I'm keen to try this out in the next file I need to read in, right? But if I say, oh, actually I need to add this functionality, I need to do this, I need to do this, I want to make really sure that I don't, of course, break anything. And if we can have a test where you say, here's my known input, and this is my expected output here, in these data tables, and then I can happily change to my heart's content, knowing I'm not going to break anything of yours.
And we've talked about setting a unit test. I think it was about a year ago we had the conversation. I sadly don't remember much. I mean, I use unit tests for class when I code in Java, but those unit tests are created by my professor, not by me. So I get the general idea of how to create one, but I don't remember how to set it up in Visual Studio.
Yeah, it's quite straightforward once you know how. It's just one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
they make it easy, but you got to know how. And what
Jenny, if you want to create a test method for me, the first one for me, so I can build up on them later, specifically for this reader, just to have this set up so I can kind of, steal your
and
setting.
I'm pretty sure it'll be as simple as right-clicking the solution there, adding a new project, and making it a test project. and then just,
Really?
yeah,
So,
I think it's
okay.
that simple. And the way I've set up TFS is that it scans through all of the code looking for test projects, and when it finds them, it'll run all the tests in it. So we will
Now,
do
where are the
this.
test projects here? Because I don't recall having any tests on the filter extension.
No, there's none. But to create
There's,
it,
oh,
I think
okay.
is straightforward. And I think having a separate FFilter DLL test is the way to go, because obviously it's specific to FFilter DLL, not
Would you
test lib.
mind helping us set it up? Or if you
Yep.
set it up, could you just take a couple screenshots so we
Yeah.
know how to do it
Yeah, that's
for
something I
other?
can. I'll have a play with hopefully today, and then
Mm-hmm.
I can. Yeah, I'll document what I do.
Yeah, okay, that would be good because, like I said, I know that we all have to do it, but we just, I mean, it took me long enough to figure out, I guess, a quote unquote standard way to write a reader, and I don't think this is the final, standard that we are going to develop. But just writing a reader with the new way took me, I think, twice as long, just because I was going back all the time and changing my data structures. I mean, did I want to use a dictionary? Did I want to use a tuple? I started with a tuple. Tuple didn't help me very much, so I did a dictionary instead, so on and so forth. So
No, that's the way
yeah,
to go.
and
Lots of experimenting and trying. No, you've approached this very well, I think.
so yeah, and I mean, obviously, this particular reader doesn't implement the active forecast or the horizon or offset methods. There is another one that does it. It's the precursor to that, and that's Senase, the Senase reader, which is Senase Load 3. I'm really itching to delete all the old ones. Actually, no, it's CFE Load. My bad. I think it's CFE Load. Of course, it has as you can see, the precursors to the methods I already put in the utils Irina and in import base. But here somewhere, I think it says if it's outside the horizon allowed, outside the allowed horizon, then you are not allowed to write it. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so this one is not, I mean, it is a smarter reader, which is Senase 3. It is a smarter reader, but it's still a very, very procedural. It's not, it's not object-oriented programming. But in here somewhere it says, hey, if this load falls outside the allowed horizon and offset window, then you're not allowed to write it. So I can't find it at the moment. I don't want to waste people's time looking for it, but it's here somewhere.
That is really good, and I can guarantee that we'll catch mistakes that will save the day. That's really good. Another method to look at, and it's a funny name, but Jim wrote it, and it does a very good job, is called...
Is it Silly Buggers?
Silly Buggers, yes. So that can check all your weather variables as well. And perhaps you could key off whether the input data is actual or forecast. You could create default horizon and offsets. For example, if it's observations, you shouldn't have anything in the future by default. If it's forecast, you shouldn't have anything in the past by default. So you could key those defaults in.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I could do that. But like I said, the real reason we did it for Mexico is you never knew what they're going to send you. So we actually, for every single type of data they sent us, whether it's monthly, daily, or hourly, we specified smaller and smaller windows that we allowed. Because like I said, when you get future load, when you're expecting actual, yeah, okay, you can say, hey, this is not allowed. But when you're getting actuals a year back instead of yesterday, then you're never going to be able to catch it unless you have this horizon and offset.
Exactly. But these things, I think it's important to have the defaults, which you can easily override, simply because I will see, well, as you've seen, things could trundle along absolutely fine for months, if not years. And then someone new starts, they make a mistake with the output file, and then all of a sudden they forgot to bump the year forward, and then you override it a year ago. So if we can code in defaults for that, I think that'd be a powerful thing. And then it can throw up errors, and we can look at it and go, oh wow, yeah, okay, we shouldn't be populating observations a year ago, or oh no, hold on, they did make a change. Yes, I will manually put in a horizon because it's allowed. Yep.
Yeah, and those methods are not written as a factored out method at import base just yet. They do exist, so I need to when I get a free moment, I can go in and factor them out of CFE and Senase 3 and all of those. And make them more usable. But for now, the idea is just there. Don't allow anything outside the horizon of set time frame. And for some of them, sometimes you need to specify whether something is an actual or a forecast. Because I think for one of our clients, when we get weather data or load data, it all comes in one giant file, and they don't specify which is actor, which is forecast. Basically, the program has to decide what data is before the current time frame and what data is past the current time, which is, I think, kind of silly, but
yeah, that is. But hey, the client's always
so
right.
yeah. So these two are not implemented in the particular example in here, but they could be added just because the INI already allows for them to be captured. So yeah.
Okay, that does. That's really cool. I really like this because there's lots of logging in here, and we can trace through it. Now, that all being said, the UK has developed other type codes and parsers and readers as well. So I will send this recording to them.
Okay.
But I really like this because it's much more integrated with the overall Tesla solution, and that it's using existing code. It's got significant levels of logging, and we can trace through it in the debugger line by line when
Yeah, I mean, I
if
don't know
things
if
happen.
logging is necessarily the most helpful thing when you're going through a curtain of of log messages in the control console. But at least when you're walking through the reader itself, I mean, compare a reader like, I don't know, I don't want to pick on any particular reader, but some of the readers just have lines upon lines upon lines of code in it when they're processing stuff. I mean, mine has a couple of pre-existing methods, and the only meat of it is the fill tables method and basically an empty class of headers for link to populate. Really, that's all. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I mean, at the end of the day, if it detected something outside the horizon offset, it would put something sensible in the log to tell you that. I mean, it's just simple things like that, which are very helpful with debugging.
So I can add that in here somewhere that I need to. Let's see. I'm gonna add, since this is our guinea pig class, I'm gonna add maybe code. Horizon offset info. Okay. Yep. So, do you guys have any questions?
No, I'm okay at my end. That was really good.
Okay. So, if no questions, just check out the import base class, which is the abstract class that everything implements, and all the methods at the bottom. They probably will have my name in it because I worked on them last. Check out the utils Irina, which has some of my methods that I like to use, and then the first quote unquote standardized reader is the APS Wix. Hopefully not the last.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Let's see.
Okay, well, I'll call that meeting to a close. That was really good. I'll stop recording now.